Hello, everyone, and welcome to Petite to Queen's Claim Your Career Crown podcast. I'm your host, Lynn, and today I'm joined by our special guest, Gavin Klauser. And I am really thrilled to have Gavin on the show today because we're going to be talking about how active listening in sales is your superpower. So, everybody, get your capes out. I want you to get ready. Gavin has been killing cancer of the wallet since 2018. His current agency, KHG Media, started in 2020. I want to tell you, Gavin removes all doubt, fear, and stress for coaches and consultants by oversimplifying how to build a wealth-generating enterprise. That is amazing, Gavin. And he gives his clients peace of mind, knowing they can get their clients on demand, build eternal wealth for themselves and their family. Gavin, what a mission. Welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate the time. Yeah, this will be fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great. And before we get started, for anyone who's joining us for the first time, make sure you don't miss a single episode by subscribing to Claim Your Career Crown wherever you get your podcasts. And while you're there, share the love, click all 5 stars for your review. Gavin, let's get right into this. And I would love to hear how active listening has shaped your sales philosophy and become your superpower.
Yeah, I mean, without it, are you really in sales? I mean, without it, that is what sales really comes down to, right? It's active listening. It's that leaning in whenever they're talking to you. So, the grunts, the groans, the hey, I'm listening to you, right? Whenever they're logical, you're kind of leaning back. All right. So it's those kinds of things, and that actually really build rapport. It's a lot of people think that, if you're door-to-door sales and you walk into a home and you see an elk head up on the wall and you're like, oh, I like elk hunting too, and they think that's what really builds rapport, but not necessarily. What really builds rapport is whenever people think that they're being heard, right? So whenever you're sitting down with someone and they actively think you're listening to them, and vice versa, that's when you can kind of feel that flow of a sales conversation, of a sales call. Maybe it's on Zoom. When you can see them, that's when you know that that's you're in flow and that you're on the right track. Whenever someone is also mimicking you and mirroring you, like they're actively listening to you when you're pitching, that's the superpower. I wouldn't say it's really my philosophy, but I would say that without it, are you really in sales at all, right?
Yeah, no, I would absolutely agree. I also think that active listening in any situation is how you demonstrate your respect for the other person, and not just doing the the grunts or the groans or the not groans, but the ahas. But if you also are making that nonverbal communication back to them, you're making the eye contact, you're nodding your head, you're smiling. That also
Right.
reinforces that you're actively listening to them. And one thing, whether you're on a Zoom call, you're in person, you can let them know, like, hey, if I look down, it's because I'm taking notes because this is really
Mm,
important that I capture
yeah,
the information. And that way they know that you're not looking down at your phone or you're
absolutely,
checking the latest feed, and
absolutely.
that just giving them that, then they're not thinking about that. So a lot of that nonverbal communication is also very important in that active listening role. And to your point, when you're leaning in and you're making that obvious signals that you are very involved. And you can use that piece where you repeat back to them something they said that
hmm
I, that is an important point that you just made about blah, blah. Tell me more, right? And then draw them out.
Exactly.
So, why is this ability to listen to your clients so vital?
Honestly, it's really what makes the sale. Other than in the first 4 seconds of, are you sharp as a tack? Are you enthusiastic? Are you there to actually help them? That's the most important piece. The next piece to that is building rapport, mirroring them, of course, but those are the top two things. It's you have to build that rapport. And in doing so, you have to have that, I would say, that respect for someone whenever they're talking. That's kind of like another way to say it. It's, you're not off in la la land thinking about what's the next thing you're going to say. I can't stand that when I talk to somebody and you can see that they're actively thinking about what the next thing they're going to say, without even taking into account what you're saying to them. That's that piece of it is why it's so vital, because without that, that person doesn't feel heard, and you can't make a sale if they don't feel heard. They have to know you're there to help them, not to sell to them. That's the biggest thing, right?
Yeah,
That's why
I
it's
mean,
so
nobody
vital.
likes being sold to, and making that genuine connection. I call it worthy intent, and that means that you are genuinely interested and curious about the other person, and that you're also approaching it that you truly want to help or serve them. And when you go through that conversation, if you realize that it's not a fit and that they're not, you can't with your product or service, you can't really move at this point in time, help them, or help them to the best of your ability. You can still be of service by, first of all, letting them know, but offering them suggestions or a referral to another resource that is going to get them to the where they next need to be. And
Absolutely.
that's
Absolutely.
a really important point that you made, is that it's human to human. We are selling to other people, and the emotions are so important. And that's why I believe that active listening is, like you, a key, to being, not only to be able to sell, but to do it effectively, and where you're truly serving the other person, and you yourself are getting the most out of it because you're helping them, you know,
Right. Right.
and make
Absolutely.
their world, their life, their work better.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. I was
how
I
did,
was told I was
yeah,
told by a mentor of mine, there really is no key to a successful sale. It's a combination, right? And that is one of the first sequences of that combination. It's like I got to get that dial just right so they understand that I'm there. I'm not bringing them up to me. I'm coming down to their level, and I'm understanding what they need at this very moment, like you just mentioned. If my service, my product can't help them where they are now, well then who can I refer them to? My biggest thing is I want to keep them in my sphere of influence, right? So I'll see what I can maybe put them into to get them to work with me. What do they need first? They need financing options. They need help with credit. What do they need help with? Where are they right now? Is this even a viable option for them? And so whenever you start to talk about those things and not just keep harping on your service or your product that they need it now, you know, everybody always does this scarcity selling. I hear that a lot. It's you got to get it now, right? It's right now. There's only 2 spots left, and nobody likes that. Everybody, there's market sophistication like nobody's business in America right now. So people have heard that before. They don't like to hear that. Quit being a used car salesman is what I like to say, right?
yeah. No, I mean, any kind of manipulative sales tactics are,
Exactly.
ugh. I mean, that's just sleazy sales soup, as I call it.
Exactly.
And, so one of the things, I mean, there are points, of course, where you truly could have limited space, but there's ways that you can do that where you're not manipulating the other people. It's just more informative.
Exactly.
And where,
Absolutely.
you've got people applying to the program. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you hit the nail on the head. Yeah, like that's the great word for it, manipulated people. Like you can't do that. You have to, if you start to be aware that you're doing that, I mean, you got to bring it right back to on track. You can't go down that path because you've already
Yeah.
lost a sale as soon as you start doing that.
Yeah, you also have lost a long-term relationship, because that's when people, I mean, it's, to have those, and those are the things that last a lifetime, where you can reach out to people and say, hey, I've got a new program I'm launching, or I've got a new product I'm launching, and they're going to be there for you. So,
Absolutely.
let's talk about how active listening, we've sort of been doing it, makes it easier and faster to reach a mutually beneficial solution with your clients.
I think that if you build rapport with your clients, and it depends on what you sell, of course, and your sales cycles and how long they are and things like that. But if you're like the faster that you can build rapport with them, that pretty much you've built a relationship with them. I mean, that's pretty much what that means, right? The faster you build a relationship with them, the faster you can show them that you care, that you're there to help, then that's the fastest way to a sale. Like that literally is the fastest way to the sale. And you
Yeah.
really shouldn't think how fast can I close these guys. I mean, if you're timing yourself, how fast can I get this call done? I mean, you're already on track. I always tell my team and who I work with, it's not a sale, it's a conversation. Have a
Yeah.
conversation with them and see if you can truly help them. Can you impact someone's life today?
Yeah.
That's how you should be thinking on your sales calls. And if you can make an impact, well then and you can make money doing it, well then that's fantastic. Then it's a win-win, right? You
Yeah.
can make your dent in the universe while you make a profit, right? And you can actually show them value and actually give them what they need. So that's why it's so, it makes such an impact whenever you can actually build that relationship. It will make it. It's not even if it will happen faster. It will happen at all, right?
Right.
If you
Yeah.
don't build rapport, if you don't actively listen, you're not going to make the sale. Period. So it's not even can you make the sale if you don't actively listen? No, it's never going to happen for you unless you have
Yeah,
somebody
unless
who
you
should
have like
be
a
in
one
there
of
at
a
all.
kind product that they can only get from you, and
Yeah, right.
and they don't care who they don't have a choice of who they work with, right? I mean, those are,
Yeah,
unicorn
yeah,
situations.
very
But
true.
when you're in
Yeah,
that relationship selling, human to human selling, I concur so much. I mean, the key thing about active listening is that it's so basic within the four pillars of our sales strategy, that we really promote. And worthy intent, relationship building being one of those pillars. But it also ties into the other pillars in the sense of, are they your ideal client? Are you going to be able to truly help and serve them? Because, if it's the proverbial square trying to go into a round hole, then it's not effective for you. That means that you're not serving and helping others that you can. So actively listening helps you find out if they are the right client. It also helps you understand what is going on in their world with their pain points, or the solutions that they are looking for, the underlying root causes of what's going on, so that you can recognize, that maybe that they are not ready for you, or that, like as I said, they don't actually fit what you need to give them. But by drawing all that out, you can also then really understand how they're thinking, what's going on with the client, and so that you can put yourself in their shoes, and then how does your product or service benefit them so they can. So, because that's what they buy. They always buy the outcome, the so they
yeah,
can.
yeah.
And that's what active listening really positions you for all the way through the sales process. Because once you've built that relationship and you're building that trust and the confidence, that then you can also have those sometimes more difficult conversations, with negotiation, or when something goes sideways. But you can
Yep.
have those, but you've built that foundation, so that you can manage that situation far more effectively, and then continue to be able to move forward and strengthen the relationship. So to me,
Absolutely.
that's one of the core reasons.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
I think that just segues into my next question for you, Gavin, which is,
Yeah.
how does listening prevent slip ups like miscommunications and conflicts, that what can slow down, the or kill the sales process, and truly drive clients away?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not actively listening, then you don't know what questions to ask, right? So it's sales conversations, there is a methodology to it. There is a scripting of sorts, but you have to be adaptive, you have to be malleable. So when you're actively listening, you'll know what questions to ask them, right? So it's always about asking relevant questions to figuring out where they are in their process. Are they a good client fit? Are they a good prospect to even continue the conversation with? But as you're actively listening, you're able to say, okay, well, she's got 3 kids. Maybe what she's buying from you is an investment, and you put two and two together that, okay, she's a risk averse person, right? Because she has 3 kids to take care of, and she's a single mother and whatever. So you'll be able to kind of put two and two together, and then you'll start to ask even more relevant questions. And so if you're not doing that, you could possibly, if you're not picking up on some things that someone said, and you offend someone, that could be a big one, right? You can offend somebody. um it's all about active listening. I mean, that's really what sales are, really, right? If you
Yeah,
can't
and people
actively
will give you
listen.
clues, right? I mean, a
Yeah,
classic is like, you go to a car dealership and you're looking at a car and they start going off about the engine, and they just go, and it's like, I don't care, just tell me. I just want to make sure that it's, rated highly. I've
Yeah.
already checked that out, and it's got the right horsepower, and it's really about
Mhm.
driving it, that, because it's also the weight of the car and how it handles, right? And it's like, you don't
Mhm.
need to keep going on and on about this engine. I don't care,
Right.
you know.
Right.
And but if you ask a question like, well, how do these airbags work? You can pick up like they're concerned about safety, you know.
Yeah.
And so then you can,
Absolutely.
talk about, and then you can also ask, would you like to hear more about the safety features of the car? So you can answer their question and then ask them, are you interested in learning more? Because there's some really special features that we offer that will make your family, like you're talking about the mom with the 3 kids, will make you safer when you're in the vehicle, right?
Mhm.
And so
Mhm.
the active listening is so critical because you can also pick up on nuances, that there's something that even when you're watching them, their facial,
Yeah.
like they all of a sudden they look like they're closed off, or they make sort of a grimace, and it's like something, they didn't like something. So you've got to find out
Mhm.
what it was, because that could end up becoming the big objection where they decide not to work with you. So
Exactly. Yep.
those, once again, those nonverbal skills, but that active listening, and then using the techniques of, well, this is what I heard. Can you tell me more about that? I'm curious, how does this work? And
Mhm.
why do you feel you're encountering this, or whatever, you'll just go with the flow, right?
Yeah.
and,
Absolutely. And
and
that's really
obviously,
what active listening is. It's just going with the flow. It's hearing what they have to say. You're kind of going back and forth. It is a flow. It's a flow state. If you're not in that flow state and you can feel it, you're not in that. And people are aware. It's almost like that sixth sense. If they can feel it, you can feel it. If it's not there, then it's not there. And maybe you just need to hang the hat up for that call and say, look, this isn't, either the client's not right for my product fit, or maybe I'm not with it today. I'm not
yeah.
listening to what you have, something more important on your mind. Maybe something happened in your life, emergencies going on. That's why it's so hard to get in a sales call if something's going on in your life, or if you're not feeling well, and these different things, because you have to be sharp as a tack. You got to have that enthusiasm. You got to be the expert. And if your mind's foggy, if you're not right, if you're not with it, you can have those slip ups. You can have that communication. You can be thinking about how bad your stomach hurts while you're having a conversation. You're not listening to them, and you're not, oh yeah, okay. And then the flow state's not there, and you just lost, who knows, a decent prospect to another competitor, because you weren't actively listening, because you're off in la la land, right? So that's why it's so important to actively listen. I mean,
Yeah, to
it
get your
is.
head in the game.
Yeah. I mean, actively listening is I mean, without actively listening, you have no conversation. There is none, right? It's like you're talking to a wall. I'm sure everybody has had an argument with someone where you're stating your point, and then they just keep repeating the same thing over and over again. And you're like, you're not listening to what I'm saying to you. You're not picking up what I'm throwing down. And whenever they feel that you're not picking up what they're throwing down, it's gone. It's the sale's not happening. So
Yeah,
um, it is, actively listening is like a fancy term for conversations. That's really what it is. You just have to
yeah,
listen, to converse. That's really what it
yeah.
is.
So, I mean, we've been talking all the way through this, how you use active listening in the selling process. And, but can you give me a few very specific techniques, or, you know, ways that you
Yeah.
can learn how to do this more effectively?
Yeah, the first 4 seconds of a like call conversation, you got to be enthusiastic. You got to be on your game. You got to be sharp as tack. You got to be coming off as the expert. You got to know product knowledge is key. But then that next piece, like I said, that next piece of that combination is that rapport. So you have to, I ask them, hey, obviously the small talk. Hey, where you from? How you doing? How many kids you got? Da da da. How old are you? The same age. Great. Blah blah blah. So you have that small talk, but that's not really rapport building. A lot of people think that is. It's not. I don't believe it is, because it's just small
Yeah,
talk. They're not going to remember what you said at the end of the call. They're not going to remember where you said you were from. So, because they're more interested in why they booked the call, why they're on the call with you anyway. So that next piece is just once they're telling you where they're from, once they're telling you those things, that's when actively listening starts. As soon as a word comes out of their mouth, that's as soon as you start. So I was on a sales call earlier today, and he said he was from Detroit, Michigan. all right, that's awesome. I'm from Illinois, Midwest boys. What's going on, man? Like, how's the weather up there? And in Detroit, back when I was home, it was like 45 degrees. It's pretty chilly, huh? And so you start talking about that, and then kind of lightens the mood a little bit, right? And then you're kind of leaning in. I stand whenever I'm on call. I have a standing desk, so I'm like leaning in. I kind of put my arm up here when I'm literally listening. Right. And so that's when it really starts. So to give you a how I use in my sales process, it never ends. It's from the first word that comes out of my mouth all the way to the end. And whenever if it's not like I'll start picking up on whether the product and service is right for them in the middle of our conversation. Kind of like where are they at right now with their lives? How much investable capital do they have? All these different things that we're going to talk about. And then I'll just put two and two together. That's really what sales is as well. If you got to ask straight up, hey, do you have the money to invest without finding it on your own? That's not really a good conversation. You're not with it yet. You haven't actively listened. You should be able to put two and two together and really understand where they're
Yeah.
at in this process and be able to guide them down the process. So that's how I use in my sales process. I will actively listen and I'll guide them down where I see them best. Okay, they do have the investable capital. They're right where they need them to be to actually invest with me today. Okay, fantastic. They're not with me yet. They don't have the investable capital. They're maybe in some debt, whatever it might be. Okay, well then I can maybe refer them to some friends of mine, refer them to some people that can actually get them, maybe 6, 12, 24 months down the road to work with me. Like I said, keep them in my sphere of influence, put them on my lead list, reach out. How are things going? Have you talked to so and so? You keep that relationship going. But that's really how I take active listening in my whole sales process. It's not just a piece of it. It's the whole thing. Like I said, it's the
Yeah.
whole conversation, right?
Yeah. And I think part of it too is really about a mindset where you need to look back and what your motivations are, that you and think really about the client and put yourself in their shoes and how you want them, that you generally want them to be successful. You want to improve, like I said, their life, their work, their situation,
Right.
help them, serve them in some way. And when you start with that, then active listening becomes easier because
Yes.
you right then you've really sort of reset where you're coming from, and it's not about closing the sale to make a quota. Instead, it's about serving them, and in the long run, this it will actually serve you better because you're building, to your point, that much stronger long-term relationship and
Absolutely.
potential for incredible additional business and warm referrals. So and I just sort of gave a clue for everybody how you can get started improving your active listening today. What about you, Gavin? What do you think that people could do today to start improving their active listening?
Yeah, it's ultimately being aware, the awareness. I always, that's where everybody needs to start with everything in life is the awareness. If you're not aware that you're not using it, well then how would you ever change, right? So you have to be aware, and having that awareness kind of comes from listening to podcasts like this one, things like that, where they start to teach you things that you don't know what you don't know, right? So become aware that you're not using it, and then take the active steps, put it on a checklist of things that you do to prep for a call, things like that, that you will start to do. And if you're coming from a good place, you kind of are already doing it on your own already. I mean, a lot of people do it. Just think of like a good friendship you have. You're doing it in that good friendship, or that friendship wouldn't, you converse in that friendship, right? So that's how you would start with it. It's, today is really just becoming aware that you're not doing it if you aren't. And then just start on every single call that you're on, every conversation you're having, practice that, because like I said, that is the sale. Active
Yeah,
listening is the sale, right?
yeah,
And that lifetime value, like you just mentioned at the end there, the lifetime value of that prospect, of that lead, of that customer, of that client, of that friend, whatever that relationship is going to be that much larger. You become almost like quote unquote a broker at that point because you can broker this relationship and multiple streams of income. Um, which is what a career is made of, right? Is that
yeah.
book of business, that Rolodex, right?
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that we've been doing here is that I recommend if you want to gain that awareness is, if you're doing virtual meetings and record them. Ask their permission to record it. Review it afterwards and look at yourself. Are you actively listening? Like when you watch this podcast, if you watch it on YouTube, you'll see that Gavin and I are, we're giving those nonverbal clues. We're smiling, nodding. We're doing the oh yeah, those the little small add-ons so that you can tell that we're listening. We're playing off one another. So this is actually a really good example of how you can see people in live
Yeah. Yeah.
actively listening to one another.
Right.
So that is amazing. So Gavin, I want to say thank you so much for sharing how to improve active listening to improve client relationships and increase sales. This has been such a valuable conversation for our audience, and I know that they're going to want to know more about where and how they can find out more about you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on. I mean, it's been really great getting to know you. Yeah, they can find me on Instagram, just Gavin Klauser, GavinKlauser. My website, khgmedia.com, khgmedia.com. It's real simple. Other than that, yeah, I mean, LinkedIn, of course, all the different socials. Yeah, I'm on all of them. You know how it is in 2021. You got to be everywhere. So you can find me just Gavin Klauser anywhere. And yeah, like I said, thanks for having me on. I'm glad to be able to share this stuff with your audience. Yeah.
Well, this has been such an informative discussion. And for everyone who tuned in today, thank you so much for listening. If you have ideas that you'd like to share, you can leave us a comment in the post below. We do really enjoy hearing from you. And if you have a question or would like to suggest a topic for discussion, you can email us at jointheconversation@petitequeen.com. And of course, to stay current on all of our insightful advice, our breakthrough advantages, these amazing episodes, you can sign up for our weekly wisdoms newsletter at petitequeen.com, and you will always be in the know. And I want to thank you again for listening. And Gavin, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Yeah. Thank you. Thanks everybody for listening to me. Yeah, that's awesome. Appreciate it. It's been great.